Hello, people. Today, I heard a very discouraging thing said by Bernanke. Now, he's always discouraged me in the things that he said about the economy, just about his ignorance on the whole topic of economics. But this most recent thing just really takes the cake, all right? And when he was recently being questioned by Ron Paul, he asked Bernanke if he thought that gold was money. And Bernanke said that he didn't think that gold was money. In fact, Bernanke went so far as to say that, well, maybe people hold, maybe Federal Reserve, well, not federal, but maybe reserve banks around the globe hold gold, silver, and diamonds and whatnot as just a tradition. Why would banks hold on to something as just a tradition if they don't have any monetary value? This guy obviously thinks that we are all completely stupid and that we are all morons and that we don't understand the full value that gold and silver have. Now, I just want to quickly go over from an Austrian perspective how banks come into being. Since Bernanke is supposed to represent a bank, all right, apparently he's forgot his own history. And apparently he thinks that banks just automatically came into being as part of just the world. You know, maybe when creatures crawled up on land, a bank came up with them. You know, and maybe they were just always here. But no, this is the way that things work. All right, this is the way that banks come into being. This is the way that banks are necessary in a civilized society. It's like this: when we all lived in villages, when we all lived and there was a blacksmith down the street, there may have been someone who had a farm, there may have been someone else who was a shoemaker, different things like that, tanners, lumberjacks, different things like that, people who work with wood and different things. All right, people bartered, and people bartered because there was no generally accepted medium of exchange. And so as a result, when people work, they traded whatever they had. So the person who was maybe a butcher, they gave people steak. Maybe the person who was a shoemaker said that I'll fix your shoes if you give me a piece of steak. Or maybe the person who maybe owned a hay farm said, okay, well, if you give me a few pieces of steak or if you give me some milk, I'll give you some hay to feed your cows, so on and so forth. That's the way things work. Now, it is possible to have a cash flow, or it's possible to actually make a profit in this sort of economy, but it's just not very efficient because the exchange rates are constantly changing. Let's say, for example, that the hay farmer has a larger than expected yield. Well, then he's going to have a hard time getting rid of that hay because it's the whole supply demand principle. If there's an overabundance of hay, then it's going to be less valuable. Therefore, the exchange rate will be different than if there was a harder time and there's not as much hay. Well, then the person who's the keeping the cows, he's going to be hard stretched to keep a, well, not to keep, but to find a food supply for his cows over the winter months. And likewise, if he doesn't do well, well, then maybe the shoe guy is going to have a hard time finding leather to make shoes out of, and so on and so forth. So it just trickles down that way. Now, so it's hard to say, okay, this year I got 5 bales of hay, I got 2 steaks, I got 7 pairs of shoes, but this year, instead of doing that, I only got 5 nice looking rocks from the guy down the street, I only got 1 piece of steak, and I only got 1 bale of hay, which may have been worth more than 2 bales of hay in the previous year because the market situations may have been different. So generally in situations like this, a generally accepted medium of exchange comes about, and normally that's gold and silver. And why is that? Because gold is easily divisible, silver is easily divisible as well. They're both durable, which means that they can go from one person's hand to another without really wearing down that much. They are also, they have uses outside of being money. So people like to make jewelry out of them. People like to do other things with them. Silver is a really good conductor, and gold is a really good conductor too. You can make wires out of them. In fact, you have gold and silver plated wires and different things that you can probably get from the store. They just cost a lot. And likewise, on top of that, they're also rare. They're a limited supply, and that's what makes them valuable as well. If it's something that's just really highly available, then it's not going to be as good of a candidate for being for being money, because it's everywhere and it's not going to have a lot of value to it. So let's go ahead and apply this to our current situation. Now, banks come about because once a general medium of exchange is established within a given population, then things become more efficient, because people can then say, okay, well, last year I took in 9 pieces of gold. This year I took in 10 pieces of gold. I'm doing better this year. And larger purchases become available. Well, they become feasible then. And instead of hauling all of your gold around with you, storehouses pop up. So you have people who say, okay, well, you can store your gold here for maybe a monthly fee or something like that, because of course the storehouse has to make its own money. And so you have people who store their gold and silver at these storehouses, and in return the storehouses give them receipts. So instead of having to carry around all of your gold on you and possibly having that stolen from you, you can just have your receipts on you. And then you can say, okay, well, I can take this receipt back to my storehouse and get a certain amount of gold back that's vouched for on that receipt. Or likewise, instead of you doing large purchases with gold itself, you can give your receipts to someone else and have them go back to your storehouse and retrieve that gold or silver in your stead, and they can put it in their own storehouse or whatever they want to. All right, this is the way banks come about. Okay, they don't magically drop out of the sky. They are a result of real money. They're a result of people creating an economy themselves and using that economy to get it to a point to where they actually need a safe place to hold their real money. Now, how did banks become what they are today? Well, back in the 1970s, they detached the value of gold from a dollar. So instead of the government and instead of the reserve actually having enough gold to back up all of the dollars that were printed out, it could just print out as much money as it wanted to. Now, you may not understand the repercussions of that, but here's the deal. Let's say that someone could just create all the gold they wanted. Let's say that you had $1 million worth of gold. Let's say that you had a lot of gold and you were rich. But let's say that someone else flooded the market with all sorts of new real gold. All of a sudden, your gold that you had that was worth a lot isn't worth so much anymore, because there's a lot of gold out there. And retailers and stores and people understand that. So they're like, okay, well, there's a lot of gold around now. We need to go up on our prices to make sure that we're getting as much as we can for our goods and services, because after all, they have to resupply themselves as well. So as a result, your $1 million worth of gold is now only worth $100 worth of gold. And it's not that you physically have less, it's that it's worth less. And that's what happens with our money. Every time the Federal Reserve Bank turns on their printers and counterfeits more and more new money, all the money that you have becomes worth less and less. And here's the other part of this devious, really, really horrible situation as well, is that the people who get the money first are the people who get to benefit from it. Because let's say that whoever can make all that real gold, when they first spend that money, they're going to be able to get the full value's worth of gold. I mean, so in other words, they're going to be able to get whatever that other guy would have been able to get for his $1 million worth of gold. They're able to get it at first. Then once the gold works its way out into circulation, then the value of everything goes down. Then the guy who sat on his $1 million worth of gold now only has $100 worth of gold, even though he has the same amount And that's because the people who get the money first get to reap the benefit of it, and the people who get the money last are the people who suffer the most. Namely, in this case, the people who are on fixed incomes and most working people out there who are the last people to get a cost of living raise. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I just figured I'd clarify all of this for you all to let you understand, or to rather help to clarify why the statement that Bernanke made was such a stupid, moronic, sophomoric comment to make from a person who's supposed to be an economist. Peace, guys.